Jesus talks a lot about money. I don't like to talk about money. I have to sometimes, though. But in the gospel today, we hear him saying, make friends with dishonest wealth so that you may be able to have true wealth. And he's talking about all this. You can't serve two masters. You can't serve two masters. Like I said yesterday, so often we get bogged down in the things of this world and we don't see the treasure in heaven we're supposed to be clinging to. The first reading is beautiful reading where St. Paul is talking to the Philippians who have his heart and who he has their hearts. And he says, when I was in need, you gave. Not once, but more than once. He says, it's not that I'm eager for the gift. I don't really want so much that you give to me. But he says, rather I'm eager for the profit that accrues in your account. He says, he looks and he sees, it's by your giving that you gain profit. Which is exactly the opposite of the way the world looks at things. But by our generosity we gain profit, not of this world, but in heaven. And so he goes on and says, I've received a full payment and all this stuff, but he says, what you gave is a fragrant aroma, an acceptable sacrifice pleasing to God. That God is glorious in his riches. He's the one that is our treasure. I think about, was it St. Lawrence? I forget. I think it was St. Lawrence who, was told to bring the treasures of the church to the emperor. And he says, okay, it'll take 3 days for me to gather all the treasures of the church. And the emperor is just like, yes, there's that much wealth to be able to gather. And so he gathers all the poor, the sick, the lame. He comes to the emperor and says, here's the treasure of the church. And so that's why he was martyred. But we look and we see, this is the grace of Almighty God. This is the treasure that we need to be seeking. The heart of God. Not the things of this world. And we can sometimes, especially in our culture which is surrounded by such wealth, we can trick ourselves into saying that we're not really a slave or a servant to mammon. And yet, maybe you aren't, but many of us have that subtle attachment hidden underneath. When we look at, remembering back just after Katrina, I was at a conference, Katrina meaning the hurricane. I was at a conference and this woman from New Orleans was speaking, and she was saying that she didn't know that when she was bringing her child to school up in Ohio, that she would never see her house again. She luckily wasn't home when Katrina came and destroyed her house. But she said this, and it struck me. She says, I don't worry about money anymore. I don't have any. I have nothing to worry about. And we look, and so often money and things have become our master. And Jesus says, you can't serve two masters. And I know in my life, I know I have to sever ties with certain things. Not that we can't have wealth, but so often it becomes our master. May we allow God to sever the ties that bind us, that keep us from serving Him with our whole heart, mind, soul, and strength.